Hey friends, it's me, Pastor Doug, with another word of encouragement for the day for today, Friday, May 27th. Over the past few weeks, we've been exploring a section of scripture typically referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. This section contains some of Jesus' most provocative and challenging teachings, including something that he says towards the end of Matthew chapter 5 when he warns his followers to be on guard against what they look at. Why what they look at? Because Jesus knows that what we look at often leads to the actions that we end up taking, right? Oftentimes our destructive and damaging and bad choices are initiated by a look, by a glance that then turns into a stare that then begins to get rehearsed in our mind and lead to intent and decisions and actions, right? And Jesus knows this, and so he warns us against it. And this week we've been looking at a few different examples of times that people saw something and then took something that wasn't theirs to take. We looked at Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, where they saw the fruit and took it, even though they knew that it was off limits. We looked at Samson in Judges chapter 14, where Samson saw a woman that he knew he had no business pursuing and took her for himself as his wife. And we see another, perhaps one of the most famous examples of this today in 2 Samuel chapter 11. This is the story of David and Bathsheba. It's a famous, well-known passage, and likely you are familiar with this story, but I'll read it to you anyway. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. In other words, King David should have been out fighting, but he wasn't. He sent his commander out to fight in his place. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged a place called Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and he walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw, there's that word again, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. Once again, someone saw something or someone that they wanted and then used their position of power to go and take what they wanted or take who they wanted. In this case, it's King David seeing a woman, desiring her, even though she was already married and he was already married, and taking her. And so he sent someone to go and get her. That courier brought Bathsheba to David, and David slept with her. It doesn't say that they slept together. It doesn't say that they made love. It doesn't say that they had sex. It says that he slept with her. Friends, how often have we seen this scenario play out over the course of human history? A man sees a woman and takes her against his will. And once again, we have another example of that in Scripture, and it started with a look. Can you imagine how this story would have gone differently if David would have seen her, noticed her, but then looked away? Even if David would have recognized, wow, she's really beautiful, and then looked away and gone back to bed or back into his palace or whatever. But no, he looked, and then he looked again. And that look turned into a stare, and that stare turned into intent, and that intent turned into a decision to send for her, and that decision led to an action. Friends, this is how it starts. And that's why it's so important that we guard our eyes, because our eyes are sort of the windows to the soul, right? I mean, what we see is sort of what we end up thinking about. Martin Luther, a famous theologian, had this brilliant saying. He said this. He said, I can't control when a bird flies over my head. He's talking about our thoughts. He says, I can't control when a bird flies over my head. He says, but I can control whether or not I allow that bird to make a nest in my hair. It's a brilliant analogy, right? Like, we can't always control what we see or what flashes across our screen, but we can control what we continue to look at, what we continue to stare at, and what we continue to allow to take root in our minds. And so, friends, we have to be on guard about what we look at, because what we look at turns into ultimately what we end up doing. Friends, I hope this encourages you and challenges you. I hope you'll join us this Sunday as we gather together to worship the Lord together and to open His Word together. So join us. If you can't join us in person, you can join us online on YouTube right here on this channel. And we won't be picking these videos back up on Monday because it's a holiday, but we will pick them back up on Tuesday. We'll see you then.